And at the end of the week, I'm sitting there in this gymnasium and I see all these kids and they're having a blast. And I'm 29 years old. I'm looking at my breath in the air because it's so cold. And I'm looking at these kids having a blast. And I'm sitting there going, I'm 29 years old, electrical engineer, working for the number one company in the world, and I'm not happy. And I'm like, they're so much happier than I am, which is the same thing that I found almost 20 years later in Africa.
If you have ever looked around at your life and thought, this can't be it, you are in the right place. This is Flying Upstream, the podcast for people who refuse to live on autopilot. I'm your host, Kristin Medeiros. Each week, I sit down with people who questioned the rules, challenged the expectations, and chose a different path. Not because it was easy, but because it was honest. We talk about the moments that broke them open, the decisions that scared them, and the lives they built when they stopped doing what they were told and started listening to themselves. If you are done following the crowd and ready to trust your own way forward, stay with me. Let's fly upstream. Welcome back, free spirits. I'm your host, Kristin Medeiros, and today's guest is Larry Kesslin. Larry is someone who has lived many lives in one lifetime. He spent over 20 years building a successful business, raising kids, and doing what he believed a good husband, father, and provider was supposed to do. From the outside, his life looked solid. From the inside, something felt missing. In 2012, shortly after walking away from that business, Larry traveled to Africa with his family. That trip changed everything. What he witnessed there reshaped how he understands joy, purpose, identity, and what it actually means to feel fulfilled. Since then, Larry has dedicated his life to helping people understand who they really are beyond titles and achievements. He created a framework called the Joy Molecule and has coached thousands of people who feel successful but disconnected, and continues to explore the deeper human journey through projects like the Ascension Ladder. This is a conversation about identity, scarcity, fear, reinvention, and what happens when you stop looking outside yourself for answers. Larry, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Thank you very much. I really want to meet that person. He sounds like a good guy. Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey to say the least. So thank you for having me. And I'm looking forward to just a really wonderful conversation.
Amazing. All right, let's get right to it. So
Sure.
before everything shifted for you,
Yeah.
what did your life look like on paper? And what did it feel like inside your body when no one else was watching?
On the outside, I think people knew that I was never grounded. Like I was skilled. I have some gifts that I was given. This being that I live in was gifted with some basic skills that I still to this day honor. They are not me anymore. What I've realized is that they were just things that I'm able to do. And it looked like anybody else's life. I was performing to be someone that I thought other people wanted me to be. I had raised myself as a child pretty much. My parents are loving people, yet my dad was financially challenged most of my childhood, and my mom worked. And I was a latchkey kid from the time I was 5. And my brother and sister were supposedly taking care of me, but they were doing their own thing. So I parented myself, and I didn't do a very good job of it. So when I became an adult, I lived with a lot of depression. I wouldn't say deep, deep depression, but a lot of not happy, and scarcity was a huge part of my life. And I lived in this place where I was always questioning and wanting to find answers. And then when I found an answer, I wanted to show everybody how smart I was and that I had their answer. And that caused a lot of challenges in my life. But when I got to Africa, I was still running my business. Had defined success for myself at 28. And I think a lot of the things that I think about is how we use language. And I define success at 28 as the ability to do what I want whenever I want to do it. And that kind of shaped my decision to leave GE a year later and to start on my own entrepreneurial journey, which has been 32 and a half years now. And April 15th will be 33 years. So I know what it's like to take care of myself. But on that journey, I had lots of questions. The way that I see the world today, I believe that I have a basic self, a conscious self, and a higher self. So my basic self is my inner child. And I would say that the majority of my life until, let's say, 15 years ago was basically my inner child screaming and yelling, wanting attention, wanting to be loved, wanting to be noticed, wanting to be seen, wanted all those things. And it showed up as a successful business owner because I drove opportunity and I sought opportunity everywhere. I left no stone unturned. And if I look back at it, I did all the things I thought I needed to do in order to get all the things that I wanted. And then things started shifting. Before I moved to California, I lived in New York City from 1992 till 2010, so in Manhattan and Riverdale in the Bronx, and married a woman that I met that we had a great relationship for almost 27 years and raised two kids. So on the outside, it all looked good. And we moved to San Diego in 2010. I love living in San Diego. For me, it's the best place in the world, and I've traveled a lot. But my life from the outside, I guess people would say I drove the right car. I had the Wave Runner that I could take down to the bay. I had the 1997 Jeep Wrangler that my daughter loved. And I had all that stuff. And I lived in a beautiful home in a beautiful suburb in North County, San Diego. But there was always this gnawing inside. There was always this thing inside that it said I wasn't enough and I wasn't who I was supposed to be. And it happened twice specifically, and both times I was volunteering. The first episode was why I left GE. I mean, I spent a week with 85 inner city kids in Aspen in 1993, brought 12 of them from New York City, from the Henry Street settlement. And we met the other kids that were from Denver and New Orleans and LA and a bunch in Phoenix and some other cities. And we taught them to ski for a week. And at the end of the week, I'm sitting there in this gymnasium and I see all these kids and they're having a blast. And I'm 29 years old. I'm looking at my breath in the air because it's so cold. And I'm looking at these kids having a blast. And I'm sitting there going, I'm 29 years old, electrical engineer, working for the number one company in the world, and I'm not happy. And I'm like, what did that? They're so much happier than I am, which is the same thing that I found almost 20 years later in Africa. I went to rural villages in eastern and northern Uganda, and I met people that were truly at peace and joyful, and they had nothing. And I got back from that trip sitting in JFK Airport. I said, okay, I'm done with success. I need to be significant. And that's where the journey really began for me, to really dig inside. My business was running well. I was making a very good living. And I just decided that I needed to find something different. And I started talking to my clients about purpose and starting to educate them that they are the only one who sees the world that they do. And I thought that purpose was everything. I thought purpose was our destiny, that we had to get to this place of purpose. And what I learned through that journey, two things. One is success without significance isn't success at all. So I wrote a book called Success Redefined. So my new definition, ability to do what I want, whenever I want to do it, while being part of something greater than myself. That's my new definition of success. To be of service to others, to be someone who gives unconditionally to others and asks for nothing in return. That piece for me was huge. So I'm at this place right now today. The last 13 years, 14 years have taught me that there are many people out there that are super happy. But when I got back from that trip, I was asked three questions that really turned everything on its head for me. And those three questions at a conference in Mexico with 400 people trying to solve world poverty. What is poverty? Who gets to define it? And why are we trying to fix it? And that blew my mind because I had just been someplace that was poor. And I kind of came to this conclusion after that experience at that conference that maybe they're not poor. Maybe they're just impoverished. Maybe we're poor. So I did a TEDx talk in 2014 about the disconnected, connected world. And what I observed about all these people that I met in Bali and Gulu and Jinja, these small villages in northern Uganda and eastern Uganda, that these people were just so at peace. And that's what I think we're seeking. So my journey from 2012 to now has not been to find more money or find more accolades or find more success the way I used to define it. Although I've done all those things because I still was shedding my old self. And I got to this place of, I just want to find inner peace. And then I find Michael Singer and the Untethered Soul and Living Untethered and the Surrender Experiment. And I listen to his podcast all the time. And he says, the world is unfolding perfectly. It's just not meeting our expectations. And this is where the shift comes in, is that for me, the shift, the biggest shift was I was always looking outside myself to solve the problem. I was always looking for someone to act differently for me to feel better. And what I realized is the only way for me to feel better is to heal my own wounds. Because at the end of the day, nothing that any other person does hurts me. I feel hurt because I interpreted what they did a certain way, or I feel joy, or I feel happiness, or whatever. It's all an interpretation. And we get to choose that if we truly understand what we are. So in my book, I talk about what, who, and why. And that what is, what do you do for a living? What's your favorite sports team? What? Who is your essence and your way of being in the world and your values and your principles, and your why is your reason for being. But the what I'm talking about right now is, what are we as a creature? I am a being that was given the label at birth of Larry Kesslin. Well, I was actually given the label of Lawrence Bruce Kesslin. I go by Larry now. And that's just a label. It's not me. I am the one who sees all the thoughts that have been put in this mind for the last 62 and a half years.
Yeah.
And I get to understand that now, that my being has agency over those thoughts and those feelings. That the way that I describe it to my clients and to the people I spend time with, I am the sky, my thoughts are the clouds, and my feelings are the weather. And I am not the clouds, but the clouds linger sometimes, and sometimes there's no clouds. And sometimes they're deep and dense, and sometimes they're light and fluffy. So that's the talk track in our head. That's the thought. But the thought is not me. I'm the sky. I'm the one looking at these thoughts. And when I got to that place, the whole world changed. Everything changed.
Before we jump too far ahead, I want to kind of go back a little bit
Sure.
earlier on before you had this massive shift, because you said that you spent a lot of energy and effort achieving stability and success, and that you still lived with a constant fear of going broke.
Mhm.
And I'm curious to know, when did you begin to realize that fear was coming from the past rather than from your present reality?
I would say that's just in the last year or so that that has shifted for me. Because when I started to get to know sky, well, let's just use it as the sky. When I started to get to know myself, my being, I realized that my being is pure love, 100% abundant, 100% neutral, 100% grateful, and 100% present. And that for me, everything else is thought. And not that thought is bad, and not that thought is evil, but it's just thought. And I'm a being that has thought. And it for people that aren't in this conversation, this is such a foreign conversation, and it was foreign for me too, because I thought I was spiritual, and my mind wanted to convince me that I was spiritual. But I've done, let's say, over half a dozen psilocybin experiences, and I had one experience where my spirit left my body, and when that happened, I realized that I was more than I thought I was. And when I came back into my body, it took me 6 months to integrate what actually really happened, maybe even more. And then something happened in the last few months that tested me. And it showed me even more that I just need to follow the breadcrumbs. My being just needs to observe everything that's happening in front of me and just take them as opportunities to love more,
Yeah.
to take them as opportunities to find more truth in however the other person is defining truth. Because I wake up every day wanting to touch every person I touch and leave them better than I found them. And that doesn't always happen. And I can't tell which action will rub which samskara, which pain body, whatever you want to call it, in the other person. And all I can do is be me. And even in it's an intimate relationship, you have no idea what the other person is truly going through. You can only imagine. And you do your best not to rub them. But even when you rub them, it's like, okay, how much do I need to bend in order to make sure that that rub doesn't feel hurt all the time? And how much do I get to
Absolutely.
be the person that I am today? So,
Absolutely. And I want to pivot just for a minute here,
sure.
because you've mentioned several times already that this journey to Africa and other experiences you had led you to really change your perspective, change your mindset significantly.
Yeah.
And you have, it led you to create what you now call the joy molecule.
Uh-huh.
And I want to kind of tie all of this together for our
Sure.
listeners. So you've created this. how did your understanding of joy evolve from something external to something more internal? So like what was that specific moment or experience like for you and related back to the joy molecule?
So in 2015, I wrote Success Redefined. And in that book, in the latter half of the book, I wrote a line: conscious connection plus purpose equals joy. And it was if you look at the cover of the book, it's a swatch of blue paint and a swatch of yellow paint. And the blue paint is purpose and the yellow paint is connection. And the green diamond is joy. So I've been talking about joy for over a decade, but it was all a conversation back in 2015. And what I've been doing is, so in 2015, I came back from a trip. I pulled my kids, went to Africa in 2012, but 2.5 years later, I pulled my kids out of school for 6 months and we took a trip around the world. And in those 6 months, we went to Australia, Middle East, and Europe. And I studied happiness the whole time. Martin Seligman, Sean Aker, anything I could find that had to do with what makes us happy. So journaling and meditation and mindfulness and exercise and all the things that bring us happiness versus consumption and the external beings. But over that time, I've been studying other people that I think are joyful. And my writer that was playing with me on this book said, Larry, conscious connection plus purpose equals joy. That's C2P. I'm like, okay, it's C2P. And she said, yeah, well, if H2O is the water molecule, then C2P must be the joy molecule. And that's where the joy molecule name came from. So that was a decade ago. And I did nothing with it for 10 years. But I've always wanted to write the stories of the people I've met. And when I started thinking about what they all have in common, is they all know what they are, who they are, and why they are. And when you have that, my definition of joy, which is what I've been seeking. So I believe that it's important for us to define these words. So happiness for me is getting my needs met, and joy is knowing what I am, who I am, and why I am, which to me is synonymous with inner peace. Because nobody can tell me I'm anything other than what I am.
Yeah, that
And
makes a lot of sense.
I witnessed people like that. So the construct of the book was, when I sat down with 5 really good friends on a Saturday morning, about a month and a half into writing the book, and I was getting really close to challenging Abraham Maslow in the book. And my friend says, what's the book about? I said, the book's about me finding my joy. Then just tell people how you did it. And for me, it was these 5 lessons from these 8 stories. And the 5 lessons for me are my 5 lessons. They're not anybody else's lessons. Although some of them might be other people's lessons, mine were circumstances not define your joy. I learned that in Africa. I learned that with the kids in Colorado. That was my first lesson, is that no matter where I am, joy is an internal knowing, not an external situation thing. Happiness is more of an external situation, what's going on in my life. But joy is this knowing what I am, who I am, why I am. So if I'm on this journey, the first issue was circumstances not define your joy. Second thing, the second story in the book is Carrie Rich. Amazing woman. I think she's 39, maybe 40 now, but I met her when she was 27. And a year before I met her, she was handed $2 million by 2 different philanthropists to go change the world. And Carrie has an amazing organization called the Global Good Fund. You can read all about it in the book. And she is doing amazing things. But her lesson to me, I call that chapter Redirecting Capital, is that how do we take business and make it a thing that does good in the world versus just make money? But for me, that lesson is my work needs to matter. Not everybody's work needs to matter, but mine does. The third lesson, which is the most powerful for me in my life, is this idea of the identity. So the third lesson is the identity illusion, and that'll be the next book. So there's 3 challenged athletes in the book. There's a guy, believe it or not, I rode a tandem bike from San Francisco to San Diego with a blind dude. And yes, he was on the back, I was on the front. So we rode 640 miles, 7 days, trained for a year plus to do this ride. And I got to know Jeff Mata really well. And Jeff is now on the US judo team. He happens to be blind, but he's a phenomenal athlete. 5'8", 160 pounds of solid muscle, triathlete, owns a jiu-jitsu studio. He just happens to be blind. His senses are amazing beyond his blindness, and he's an amazing human being. So that story informed him about his identity when he lost his sight 18 years ago. The second story about Moon Cucker lost her arm in a motorcycle accident, and that informed her, and she became a world-class archer. So she was the first female on the compound archery team for the Paralympic team for the U.S. And the last story is Joe Delagrave, who's the coach of the wheelchair rugby team, who broke his neck at 19, 6'6", 260, college football player, now paralyzed in a wheelchair, quadriplegic. He's going to be writing the next book about his journey, which is all about losing his identity multiple times in his life. And the question is, what are we? The fourth lesson is all about persistence, perseverance, and patience, that everything happens for a reason, and we just need to keep moving forward. And the last one is called the Enough Academy. When we have enough, what is life? I mean, what are we supposed to do with enough? When we have more than we need, what are we supposed to do? And that's a story about a philanthropist who has sold a business for $500 million and has given a lot of it away. And he's realized that it's all about connection. All these stories taught me that it all comes back to connecting more deeply to self so we can connect more deeply to others. And that's the journey that I went on. Now, I'm not saying that my 5 lessons or anybody else's 5 lessons, but these are the people that taught me these lessons, and they're amazing people, and I get to tell their stories.
That's beautiful. And after coaching so many people who look successful on the outside but feel disconnected on the inside, what do you think most people are actually searching for when they say they want more?
I would say keeping up with the Joneses type of mentality, that I'm comparing myself to somebody else. So the issue I believe we're chasing is that I'm not enough. And I'm attached to an outcome that I need to have happen in order for me to be happy or for me to feel joy. And most of the people that I meet are super smart, and they're living in a construct that they've been raised in by media, by their parents, by everybody around them. And the truth is, we are exactly perfect. We're exactly what we need to be all the time. And the question becomes, when are we enough? And how do we feel like enough? Because most of us, for me, for most of my life, I was always striving to get more and set more goals so I can move the goalposts so I can be less happy, because now I need to, as soon as I achieve something, I need to go find the next thing. And that for me was my life. And it no longer is. I mean, I was in a networking group a week ago, and he's talking about goals and all this stuff that everybody wants to attend. If we try to, I'm like, I'm done with goals. I'll set intentions and I'll have an idea of what I want to accomplish this year. But the idea of goals is so rigid to me. It's so much, well, if I don't achieve them, I'm not going to be happy. I don't know. That doesn't serve me, does it? Will it make me work harder? I'm at this place now where the world just unfolds every day. If I put myself out there, if I do stuff like this every day, I love this whole podcasting thing. I've just totally jumped on it less than 6 weeks ago. And I'm having so much fun. I'm just getting to meet amazing people like you that are, I mean, it's obvious you've done your research and you're investing in the people that you're talking to, and you're asking incredibly thoughtful questions because you know that there's people out there that need some of this information. And I just thank you for doing that. I mean, we are in this world where there's so many people in pain because they've been listening to Madison Avenue in Hollywood, that Hollywood has the definition of what a relationship should be. And Madison Avenue tells you what clothes you should wear and what kind of car you should drive and what cigarettes you should have smoked 50 years ago, which wouldn't hurt you. No, they're not bad for you. No, they're great. And if you smoke them, you'll get this beautiful woman. And little do you know, you're going to die from lung cancer. So it's the most amazing machine that's ever been built. And I think a lot of it is to keep people from learning to get past consumption. Consumption is the system we live in. And I believe that in order to find out why we're here, which to me, the reason we're here is to figure out why we're here. Like, and my daughter asked this beautiful question 2.5 weeks ago. She had just come through some challenges and her life got a little interruption. So she's got to go back to grad school again this semester, and she's starting from scratch. And she said to me, Dad, I mean, she was in an airport in Florida. She's looking around saying, what are we all really doing here? And that got me thinking. And I started putting together my thoughts about what that looks like. And you mentioned at the beginning, the ascension ladder. It's something I'm working on right now. It's this idea that Abraham Maslow, first of all, never created the hierarchy of needs. So Maslow was this thinker, psychologist, who created constructs around human life. And the foundation of his construct was survival, food, water, shelter, and safety. The next part of his construct was about self-esteem and love and belonging. Let's call that me. So the base of this construct was survival. Me stuff. I need to love myself and I want to belong to others. And then the top was self-actualization in the pyramid. Maslow never created a pyramid. Some consultants did that wanted to use his work in the corporate world and gave him full credit for it. But that wasn't his construct. And he went to self-transcendence, which is one step beyond actualization. I'm calling that ascension. So the journey for survival and me is all about looking outward into the world to get validation for me. The journey for self-actualization and transcendence, which I'm calling ascension, is going inwards and figuring out, who am I really? Am I my thoughts? Am I my feelings? Or am I a being that has thoughts and feelings? And that conversation is the crucial conversation for me. So the beauty of this ladder is that there's no better or worse. It's all about awareness, waking up to where you are on the ladder. Not good, not bad, just the reality of where I am. And once I figure out where I am, I get to reach down and help those below me come up the ladder and reach up to the people above me and ask them what they're seeing that I don't see. What are my blind spots as being a being on this planet that I need to learn in order that I can help the people below me? And I'm a translator. One of the gifts, so again, I'm a being that has a human experience. I have a mind, I have a body, and I have these abilities. And I tell people I'm like James Bond. Like James Bond got into this body, and the guys who made the machine never told him what the machine does. It's like I have no instruction manual, and I got to figure out what this body does. Now, this body, mine, is masterful at meeting people, coming up with ideas of other people that they should meet, connecting them together because of something that instinctively I know they should know each other. And this has happened not tens, not hundreds, thousands of times in my life. I've connected people to each other. So people might call me a super connector. And I've only been in San Diego for 15 years. There's people that have lived here their whole life. And some people will tell you I'm one of the most networked people in San Diego. And I'm not. And when people do meet me, I can introduce them to people that will shift their perspective or open a door that they didn't see possible. That's what this machine does. And when other people meet me, they don't understand that, but that's okay. That's what I do. And I can tell you story after story after story of things that have come through me that are not me. I don't take credit for it. It's just, that's what this vehicle does. So the more I learn that, and then our identity and our ego are good things, but our identity and ego to excess are not good things. So I need an identity because I need to make a living, and I need to have things in order to survive in this planet. So my construct of how I created it from birth, all good, not bad at all.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
beautiful.
doesn't serve us when we don't understand what it actually is.
Incredible. I mean, you have such a wealth of experience, and I so appreciate the shift that you've had in your life and how you've embraced it and sharing that with us. As we wind down today, I've got one last question for you. If someone listening feels successful by most standards, but quietly empty or restless, what would you want them to know about what becomes possible when they stop trying to become someone and start remembering who they already are?
I've mentioned it a couple of times, and I think the journey is everything. Is that we're not trying to get anywhere. It's all about being present and being where you are. And I would just tell them to stop looking outside for any answers and start going inside and start listening to your breath, learning to breathe through your body. Most people that I work with breathe in their chest. I happened to play trumpet when I was a kid, so I learned to breathe into my belly and into my back. And we are creatures that don't even understand our own vehicle. So stop looking outside for any answers and figure out how you work. Figure out how you were built. Figure out what you love truly in your heart. And then the ultimate opportunity is to figure out what causes you feel called to solve. Because I promise you, if you go find the causes, the philanthropic projects in this country that you feel called to, you will meet others that you were meant to meet, either those that are on the board involved in the organization or the actual people that the organization serves. You will find your peace, because I believe each of us was wounded in certain ways that lead us towards other people that have similar wounds, so we can help each other heal. And I think that's what the journey is about, is stop looking outside to get more stuff. I've made less money over the last 10 years, every year until this year. And I'm finally, it's shifting the other way because of my letting go of everything, my scarcity issues, all of it. And knowing that the world will take care of me. And I ask people to just trust, to follow the breadcrumbs and let the world unfold in front of them.
Wise words, Larry. Thank you so much for this conversation and for the depth that you brought into it. I really appreciate the way that you spoke about identity, fear, joy, and the meaning that cuts through a lot of the noise and it lands in a very human place. So I appreciate that. And especially your honesty about the parts of the journey that were uncomfortable,
Mm.
moments of unlearning, and mostly the reminder that fulfillment is not something we earn, but something we remember. So thank you, Larry, for sharing your story and your perspective with me today.
Thank you very much, Kristin. You have an amazing, blessed day and a wonderful weekend.
If today's conversation sparked something in you, take a moment to sit with it. You can find more episodes and resources at flyingupstreampodcast.com. And if this show speaks to you, the best way to support it is to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who is ready to question the path they are on. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and always keep flying upstream.